When we looked at equity through the lens of the learner, the lens of the family, our principal said, we need more help. We brought the children in, we took care of it. The point being, equity through the lens of the recipient is the equity that people who may look like me or look like you need to fully understand.
Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for tuning into this edition of Leading Through Unprecedented Times. And yet again, I am fired up to have my man, Superintendent Mike Lubelfeld from Illinois. Mike, thank you so much for joining the podcast. I respect your work tremendously. You are so well known throughout the country as a superintendent, leading the way, especially in the pandemic. How you doing, my friend? How are things?
I'll tell you, it's great to see you, Tom. It is really wonderful to be on the podcast, and I appreciate your kindness and your kind intro. Things are going great. Is something going on that I should be aware of?
Well, we're about a year in here, my friend. Mike, let's just dive in right there, because part of the reason I wanted you on the podcast, and I know your calendar is crazy, so it's taken a little while to get you here, but part of the reason is I've really stood in admiration of the way you've communicated throughout the pandemic. I saw a picture of the 1 year anniversary. I believe you were up there. I don't know if it was with your governor or somebody like that throughout the whole state of Illinois. Talk to us a little about how you've led the way, how you've navigated things throughout your district in the midst of all this adversity throughout the pandemic over the past year.
Well, I have to tell you, it's been one heck of a year, and it's been surreal at times, heavily realistic at times, and enlightening and empowering at times. So if I can break it down, the school board here in District 112 is phenomenal. Fantastic group of people who really are committed to governance, and they understand we're an 8-person governance team. I handle the management and staff. They handle the overarching governance, and that's really helped with the board superintendent relationship. I'm blessed with them. I also have a leadership team full of some of the most dedicated, ambitious, caring, thoughtful, and creative and flexible leaders who have helped us lead our 550 staff, who, by the way, have been heroic every step of the way, our 3,700 students, our families, and our communities. It has been it takes a village. It's all hands on deck. Tom, I'm going to tell you what we did from the starting point and how that has kept us going through now. A relentless pursuit on guiding principles: safety, learning, communication. And everything we've done has really focused around those guiding principles. And that has really been our leadership philosophy. We have fed our children. We have accounted for connectivity needs. We've accounted for training needs and language needs. We've made sure we've got the mental and physical general welfare of all staff members too. So it's students, it's staff, and then it's been community. We have aimed to lead with coherence. So it's easy for me to tell you how coherent our leadership is as a superintendent. Some people think I'm completely incoherent, but the bottom line is our aim and efforts have been coherent leadership with clear communication and a focus on learning. Obviously, that's our bread and butter.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you've mentioned the leadership team a few times. So let's dive a little bit further into that. Now, listen, I've known you for a long time, and I know you're a smart guy, but I know that all these brilliant ideas as your district leads the way can't just be coming from you. And I say that out of love. So talk to me about your leadership team. Talk to me about their work throughout the pandemic. What's been successful, maybe some hurdles that they've overcome, and just the work. This podcast really focuses for principals, superintendents. So talk to us about what they've done over the past year to really navigate this pandemic.
Well, we have taken a project lead, project manager approach. So I've got a deputy superintendent, Monica Schrader, amazing. She's handled staffing and personnel services with the principals. We've got Dr. Holly Colleen, who formerly is the student services assistant superintendent. She's learned all about PCR testing, antigen testing, you name it. She's been handling all of that with the community. We've got Dr. Kevin Ryan, teaching and learning, whose team of folks have said, all right, let's reimagine learning, working with the principals and the teachers. And we've got others. The business department has been spectacular. The operations folks. What we've done and we've said is, look, we have to figure out together how to open up our schools, whether it's full-time in person, which wasn't a reality in the fall, part-time in person, what does that mean, or all remote. or all of the above? And then we said, principals, you're the CEOs of your buildings. You know your kids, you know your parents, you know your school facilities. What do you need from us? We've got the Department of Operations getting tense. Long story short, Tom, and to be concise, we said we need your help. They rose to the challenge and challenge and challenge. And we have meeting after meeting after meeting, and we execute. We execute. So our leadership team is faced with a dilemma. How do we do part-time learning, for example, hybrid learning model, whatever that means? We throw ideas together, we whiteboard it, we spitball it, we ideate it, we execute it, and then we monitor it and we change it. So I've got real doers in the organization. I guess to sum it up, I've got doers who are working for District 112.
Yeah. And when you have a superintendent with a mindset like that, that recognizes his people or her people, when you have a superintendent that truly appreciates and is willing to abdicate some of that control to their people to let them run, like you just exhibited, great things happen with that. Now, Mike, one of the things that I really like about your work, I know you're heavily involved with one of our partners, AASA, the superintendent's organization. I see you constantly, whether it's presenting, whether it's attending conferences, whether it's learning yourself. I see you constantly out there in terms of the professional learning side and helping to grow your people. As a superintendent, one of your main roles, at least in my opinion, is helping your principals, helping your other staff grow and continue to move. Because many times it's our principals, it's our central office staff that are doing the professional learning, that it's easy to get in a rut and it's easy to kind of get stuck in their own way, because they're often the ones doing it, standing in front of folks. So talk to me about growing leadership. And I want to give you a shout out here, because I know in the next couple of weeks, you have a new book coming out. I believe it's called The Unfinished Leader. And let's face it, I love that title, because the moment we feel like we've arrived is the first massive step back, right? But I also understand you have some frameworks in there to support. So knowing that we're principal superintendents are listening today, talk to us about The Unfinished Leader. Talk to us about that framework and those frameworks you developed to help that just continued growth and development. What's that look like?
Oh, thanks, Tom. Quick shout out to PJ Capozzi and Nick Polyak. Good friends, brothers from other mothers here in Illinois.
And you can say the brains behind the operation for the new book. Is that what I understand? There's
clearly the brains behind the operation. I give them all the credit. You know it, man. So the framework talks about leadership and leading through an equity lens, an empathy lens, communication, adaptive change leadership, and being unfinished. We never truly arrive. We're not looking at the best version of ourselves. We're looking at the next version of ourselves. So here at the school district, I like to use leadership themes of orchestrator, activator, developer, as I'm looking at our leaders, our assistant superintendents, our directors, our coordinators, our principals, our associate principals, our instructional coaches, our mentors. We are becoming better versions of ourselves through, in this case, this framework, of those areas that we talk about in the book, but also in terms of our practice. When we lead with an empathy and equity lens, we are genuinely seeking to understand what are the perspectives, fears, hopes, and celebrations of the children, of our staff members, of the parents and community, and let's lead thusly. Let's communicate appropriately. When we're looking at adaptive solutions, adaptive change is real. What are we going to do now that is actually different than what we did before? And then how do we sustain it? So how do we take this web-based learning and maybe apply it post-pandemic? These are real solutions that we're looking at right now in real time. And also, how do we simply crystallize, clarify, and communicate over and over and over and over and over again so the messages are understood, and what isn't understood isn't the listener's problem, it's our problem as the communicator, and we need to hear and we need to modify our communications. So our leaders here are learning by example, but more importantly, Tom, my hope, my aim is to enable them to act, empower them, the leaders, to act and lead in their particular setting. And then I can step back, cede some control and authority, help them get better, learn from them, and become better myself. So it's a continuous cycle of improvement. Thanks for asking.
Absolutely. And that's powerful stuff right there. I'd love to dive even a little bit further into some of those pieces. Equity is so core to the work at Future Ready Schools. And, one of the things I say all the time is like COVID didn't create equity issues. COVID amplified the equity issues that have always existed. And whether we're looking at connectivity and devices, at Future Ready Schools, we identified it's about 16.9 million students that didn't have the access needed. And disproportionately, it's our Black and brown kids that didn't have the access. But equity inside of our schools, in the curriculum that we're using, in the stories that they read, in our hiring practices, who's glorified on our walls and in our spaces, who do kids have access to, and those types of things there as well. You're such a well-known superintendent. Here you are talking about a topic that at Future Ready Schools has been core to our work now for 6 years, but it's something that you're also leading in this space. Talk to your colleagues around the country about, post-pandemic, as we continue to lead forward with continuing that equity lens and the decisions they have to make. What's some advice you have in that area?
I'm going to give you advice with an anecdote. I'm going to tell you our shout out to our principals at Oak Terrace Elementary School in Highwood, Illinois. In the late fall, we realized we had a immediate chronic truant problem. And it wasn't a chronic truant problem for anything negative. It was because family circumstance situation dictated that even though we had given a device, and even though we had given the internet access, and even though we even had training, because of the family dynamic, the economic impact on this pandemic in real time in our world, we had 56 disconnected children out of in a school less than 500, K-5 school. It wasn't all the stuff we were doing and giving to provide equitable access and outreach. We got to the point where we literally had to reach out, and we brought the children back with parent consent and everything into the school to facilitate the remote learning. This was at a time when we were all remote. The point being, equity isn't just giving a device, did it. It isn't just giving internet access, took care of it, helped them pay for it or paid for it ourselves. It isn't just training. It is, are we providing equitable access to education in real life and in real time? And in our case, we weren't. Yet we're filling all the boxes, Tom, checking off all the boxes. When we looked at equity through the lens of the learner, the lens of the family, our principal said, we need more help. We brought the children in. We took care of it. The point being, equity through the lens of the recipient is the equity that people who may look like me or look like you need to fully understand. And it may mean ringing on a doorbell, sitting down and saying, help me understand, what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? And being open to being vulnerable, and then providing appropriate equitable solutions. And guess what? This pandemic exacerbated, spotlighted, whatever word we want to use, the inequities in our system. Our own learning experiences and monitoring is showing the gaps are continuing, and we stand for better. And we're going to fix that. So we're looking at tutoring programs targeted for children that need it. We're simply doing what we have to do because it's right. We're also not resting on laurels of philanthropy or charity or, quasi-liberal notions of helping folks. We're actually saying, folks, we're rolling up our sleeves. How do we do this right? And we're seeking some help. That's the advice I'm giving to our own people who are sharing that internally. I'd give that externally. Let's really be authentic and honest about what we're doing, and let's just do it because we can.
Absolutely. And I love the notion of it being the lens in which we look through, and not some, as we say all the time at Future Ready, it's not some checkbox activity, check it, now we're finished and we're there. It's the constant lens in which we make decisions. So the other piece that I want to ask you a little bit about that you mentioned to dig a little bit deeper is around empathy. And to me, this is one of the greatest skills of school leadership. And I think it's easy sometimes for people to say, well, you're just saying then that people can do whatever they want. Oh, let's feel bad. Let's just get away with anything you want, do anything you want. And quite often I look at it as making sure those expectations are high, but truly understanding the stories. And so how can superintendents, those that have high expectations from their school board, I mean, let's face it, not to remind you, are one vote away from looking for a new job, right? Yet still have those high expectations for staff, but also lead with an empathy lens for both their staff and their students. What advice do you have for that?
Sit down and listen. And remember, you got two ears and one mouth. The Chinese character you see behind me has been adorning my office since 1997 when I attended an administrator academy about learning how to listen. And it's the heart, the ears, the mind, the eye. It's the essence of your being. And it really requires discipline and practice. We're good yackers. We talk a lot. We got to zip it and listen. Listen to your teachers. Genuinely, truly listen. Listen to the students. Really stop and listen. Don't finish someone's sentence with what you think the right answer should be. Stop and hear them. Listen to the parents. Let them get it off their chest. Use surveys and deal with some of the mean stuff that may come out, even though it's not nice. Listen to it. Now, don't go with the wind and be a whimsical listener and do whatever anyone says. Absolutely not. Speak to from your heart. What are your core ethics? What are your core values? Never relent from your core values. And if you're listening and hearing, be strong enough and courageous enough as a leader to say, I honestly do hear you. And I'm going to, share it back. Here's what you're saying. This is what we're doing and why. That you put in, though, if you look at it this way, is really there. It's not salesmanship, it's leadership. And part of it is long, messy. It's not clean. It's not quick. It's not tight. And you're going to upset people. I don't know if it's Steve Jobs or somebody, Tom said, if you want to make friends, sell ice cream. So I'm not looking to be a jerk. I'm simply looking to be real, authentic. And sometimes you're not going to like what I say. Please know, though, I did hear you. I do understand you. And I really tried to process it through this lens. Here's where we're going and why. And I'll take the time to have that debate. I don't need to be liked. I'd like to be understood as a leader.
That's brilliant. But I guess I shouldn't say the only thing that I just heard was ice cream from what that you just said, because maybe I was just teasing. I love what you just said there. And I don't know, again, who said this as well. It's not my original thought, but the idea of do we listen to respond or do we listen to understand? And to me, that's really the heart of what you're getting at. Brilliantly said, and especially coming from the superintendent lens. So well said, whether you're a teacher in a classroom, a principal, do we listen to understand, especially when the viewpoint's different than ours? And if we're going to address things like equity, or we're going to tear down structures of the past that maybe that we helped reinforce or set up, we really need to do listen to understand to our people. So well said. Let me ask you about one other thing before we start to wrap up here. I really respect, in terms of communication, your district communication, how you highlight, whether it's your people, whether it's the great thing happening. Our good friend Joe Sanfilippo talks about how in the absence of knowledge, people just make up their own. And let's face it, during the pandemic, go to the district Facebook page and let's see, people are getting attacked left and right. And as the superintendent, I'm sure somewhere along the way, you've seen some of that on social media and so there's a hesitancy to put yourself out there to share stuff in kind of what if they say something bad, right? Talk to us, if you would, about, because you've mentioned the importance of communication, even internally, right there as well, but about branding your school, sharing out your message, highlighting the awesome things that are happening in classrooms every single day, especially in the midst of such uncertainty and chaos.
I will tell you this, there's more light and love in the world, and there's more positive in every school system around the world, public or private. In District 112, our hashtag is 112 Leads, 112 LEADS, excuse me. We share the story of public education every day because excellence is happening in every classroom we've got. I'll tell you this. I've got a great communications director, Nicholas Glenn, and we really like to use video. We have really gone to 5 to 7 minute, tight, concise video messages. We've gone to 1 or 2 topic emails. We're trying hard to get quick, tight, close communications. We also know that I can tell you 10 times and I'm still going to get X percentage of people that have no idea what I'm talking about. So it isn't about they better listen or they better read. I'm going to keep giving them something to listen to, so hopefully they'll pick it up. I'm going to keep sending them stuff to read. I will over communicate. And I'll tell you this, understand that the person on the street isn't fluent in school talk. They don't know what you're talking about, even if they have a kid, they've got a life. So focus on their lens. Maybe call a trusted parent in the community and say, do I make any sense? Do you understand what I'm saying? Did I get to my point? And realize that we in leadership are not the grand poobahs who know it all. We've got to understand the lens of the recipient and clean up our messages to be tight, concise, and clear. But I will tell you this, I'll keep communicating as often and frequently as I can with the hope someone understands something that I'm saying.
Yeah, well said. And I will tell you, I love that we buzzword bingo in education, all the things, right? And sometimes parents really have no idea. And I love the video aspect of things. I know something we've tried to do really at Future Ready Schools. Heck, why we've got a video podcast here as well. But let's face it, if I'm busy, I'm sitting at a doctor's office, I'm walking through an airport, I'm much more inclined to watch that 1.5-minute video than I am to look at that 3-page email, right? And to be able to communicate in new and different ways that keep us relevant on multiple platforms really is just the way we need to be doing it. And you've been leading the way there. So I got one more question for you as we wrap up here. Again, here you are as an experienced superintendent, continuing to fail forward, navigate the way, trust your people, build capacity in your people. And I know that not everybody out there is feeling like that. Maybe I'm a superintendent or a principal feeling like I'm just trying to keep my head above water day in and day out. Maybe you are somebody that's feeling like, hey, I've gotten this and with the lights at the end of the tunnel, we're moving forward. Give me one piece of advice, no matter where they are on that continuum, that you have for school and district leaders as they continue to lead through unprecedented times.
Just like a coach or a person who's going to direct you is going to tell you to go back to your fundamentals. You need to be able to pitch and catch and hit in baseball. You need to be able to run and block in football. You need to be able to sing and block in the theater. Go back to your fundamentals. What's your why? We are here because we love kids, we love adults, we love community. What is our why? Reset, focus, take a deep breath. You've got this. Talk to your board and say, look, I need your help. I'm feeling attacked. If you are, I need your help. I need your help. It's courageous and brave to ask for help. Please ask for help. There is a community of leaders who want to help one another out and know that our why is so powerful. We're helping shape the future generations, and there's nothing more noble than teaching. And keep that at the top of your head.
Incredible words of wisdom, my friend. That's Mike Lubelfeld, everybody. Mike, thanks for joining the podcast.
Thank you so much.